Watch this video to see how I make this sourdough cinnamon raisin bread. First, you're going to weigh out your raisins. I use a combination of golden raisins and regular raisins. The exact recipe amounts will be listed in the description. Cover your raisins with boiling water to plump and rehydrate them. Set your raisins to the side, and in a large mixing bowl, you're going to combine 300 grams of active sourdough starter, 650 grams of warm water, 50 grams of honey, and 40 grams of avocado oil. Use a silicone spatula to mix and combine. Next, you'll add 20 grams of salt and 1,000 grams of bread flour. I like to use a Danish dough hook to mix all of my flour into the wet ingredients. This does take a couple of minutes. You can also use a silicone spatula or even your hands. After a few minutes of mixing, you should have a shaggy dough ball like this. Cover your bowl with a damp towel and rest the dough for 1 hour. After an hour, uncover your dough, and now you're going to start stretch and folds. To stretch and fold the dough, reach your hands into the dough, stretch the dough up and fold it over itself. Spin the bowl 90 degrees and repeat on all 4 sides. Then recover your dough and set aside to rest for 30 minutes. At this point, you also want to drain the water out of your raisins. After resting the dough for 30 minutes, you'll start your second round of stretch and folds. We're going to incorporate half of our raisins during this stretch and fold. So grab a handful of your raisins and place on top of your dough, then stretch and fold one side of the dough over the raisins. Grab another handful of raisins and incorporate during the second fold, and do this for all 4 of your folds. Then recover your dough and rest again for 30 more minutes. During the third round of stretch and folds, you're going to incorporate your remaining raisins the same way that we did during the second round of stretch and folds. Then you'll cover your dough again and rest for another 30 minutes. Your fourth and final round of stretch and folds is performed just like the first round. This will help to more evenly distribute your raisins throughout the dough. After the final fold, I like to pick my dough up out of the bowl and place it in with the smooth side of the dough facing up. Then lightly flour the top of your dough, which I forgot to show here, and cover your bowl with plastic wrap and refrigerate the dough overnight. The next morning, take your dough out of the refrigerator and place on the counter for about 2 hours or until it comes to room temperature. I loosened the plastic wrap on my bowl so that my dough could continue to rise. While the dough is coming up to room temperature, combine in a bowl 4 tablespoons of ground cinnamon with 1 cup of brown sugar. This will become our cinnamon sugar filling. Once your dough has come to room temperature, it should be nice and puffy and full of air. Pick your bowl up, flip it over, and allow the dough to gently release from the bowl onto the counter. Then divide your dough into 2 equal pieces. I like to use my bench scraper for this. You could weigh the pieces and make sure they're exact, but I like to just eyeball it. Take each of your dough pieces and gently stretch them into the shape of a rectangle. Then you're going to fold them over each other and roughly form into the shape of a ball. This does not need to be perfect. This will just help your freshly cut dough pieces become a little bit more uniform and their own individual loaves. Once you have both halves shaped into balls, cover with a damp towel and rest on the counter for 1 hour. After resting for an hour, it's finally time to give our dough its final shape. Using your bench scraper, pick your dough up off the counter and flip it over. Then, using a rolling pin, or you can even use a wine bottle, gently flatten your dough out. We're looking for a rectangular shape, so I like to roll the rolling pin up and down on the dough, and then I flip it over and roll side to side. That way I'm stretching the dough both lengthwise and widthwise. You're going to push almost all of the air out of the dough doing this. We want that as this is a sandwich loaf, so we don't want big holes in our dough. Take your time doing this, and then using your hands, gently form the dough more into a rectangular shape. Now we're going to create the cinnamon sugar swirl in the dough. Sprinkle some of your cinnamon sugar mixture all over your dough, but leave about 1 inch on each side free of cinnamon sugar. The amount that we mixed will be for both loaves, so you're going to use half total on this loaf and half total for your other loaf. Fold the long side of the rectangle of your dough directly into the center, and then do the same on the other side and press the two seams together to seal. Then you're going to grab more cinnamon sugar and sprinkle all over the dough, again leaving just a little bit empty on the edge. This will help the dough to be able to seal together. On the short end of your dough, grab the edges and fold them up into a triangular or envelope shape, and then roll the dough over itself to form into a log shape. I then pinch the edges of the dough to seal them together. Pick the dough up and place it seam side down into a well-oiled bread pan. I then press the dough a little bit to help it fill out the pan. Repeat this entire process with your second ball of dough using your remaining cinnamon sugar mixture. Then cover with a damp towel and set aside to rise until the dough has reached the top of the bread pan. Preheat your oven to 400 degrees with a cookie sheet or baking stone inside, and I used a Dutch oven to be able to pour boiling water for steam. When your oven is preheated and the dough has risen to the top of the pan, place both bread pans onto your preheated cookie sheet and score one long lengthwise cut down the dough. Then spritz the top of your loaves with water and cover with foil. Then you're going to pour boiling water into the Dutch oven that's been preheating in your oven and place the loaves inside the oven. This creates a nice steamy environment so that the loaves can rise for the first 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, remove the pan with boiling water from your oven. Continue to bake the loaves with the tinfoil on for an additional 45 minutes to 1 hour. For the last 10 to 15 minutes, take the tinfoil off so that the top of your loaves can brown. Make sure the internal temperature of your loaves has reached 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Then gently flip each loaf out of its pan and place on a wire rack to cool. Allow the loaf to cool completely before cutting into it. Look at the delicious cinnamon sugar swirl inside. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.